Have you ever imagined discovering out of nowhere that you have children you never knew existed? Now imagine being at the peak of your career, at a luxurious dinner with your new partner, and suddenly seeing your ex on the street, begging for food with 4 children who bear your likeness. It's not exactly what you expect on a celebratory night. But that's exactly what happened to Daniel Herrera, a renowned businessman used to having absolute control over everything, except over a past that knocked at his door when he least expected it. That night, amidst restaurant lights and crystal glasses, something changed forever. What would you do if you realized you had missed 5 years of your own children's lives? And more, how would you react upon discovering that someone you deeply loved had tried to warn you, but was silenced? The truth is, no one is prepared to have their life turned upside down in a matter of minutes. Daniel discovered he was a father, not of 1, but of 4 children. And all this time, while he lived surrounded by luxury and status, there was a family on the other side of the city fighting to survive, with his blood running through their veins. This isn't just a story about fatherhood. It's about secrets, decisions, and the weight that some truths have when they arrive too late. Before the story begins, subscribe to our channel and comment on which city you're watching from. We want to know just how far our stories can reach. It all started on an October night in Los Angeles, in the Beverly Hills neighborhood. Daniel, 42, wore a tailored suit and drove his polished black Tesla, taking his girlfriend Valerie to celebrate their first anniversary at the most exclusive restaurant in town. Valerie, 27, a successful model and influencer, was reapplying her red lipstick as she spoke about photographers and how that dinner would yield great shots. To the world, they were the ideal couple: beauty, power, and prestige. Nothing seemed out of place that night, until Daniel saw a familiar silhouette on the sidewalk, standing next to a trash can with 4 small children around. He parked, reflexively, on impulse. Not even he could explain it. His eyes were fixed on that woman with her hair tied up, dressed in a cleaning uniform. Time seemed to have passed cruelly over her, but what truly knocked him off balance were the faces of the children: 3 girls and 1 boy, the green eyes, the shape of the chin, even the way they furrowed their brows. They were his. It was impossible to deny. The world around him vanished. Lights, sounds, footsteps, even Valerie calling his name sounded distant. On that sidewalk, between trash and concrete, lay the truth Daniel had never expected to find. And it had a name. It was Isabella, the woman he thought he had left behind, yet who, by all indications, carried his past in her hands. Daniel got out of the car as if pulled by a magnet. Valerie stayed behind, confused, looking out the window, without understanding his reaction. When Isabella saw him approach, she stiffened as if bracing for impact. And the 4 little ones? They remained there, laughing among themselves, sitting on the sidewalk, completely oblivious to the tension about to explode. One of them was drawing in an almost ruined notebook. Another was humming quietly. The third tried to make the youngest boy stop fiddling with a cardboard box. Daniel stopped just a few meters away, not knowing what to say. He just stared, until, without planning it, he whispered the name he hadn't uttered in years: Isabella. She looked up, and when she recognized him, her face was filled with a mix of surprise, pain, and fear. Daniel had never seen that look in her before. In the days when they were married, she was light, cheerful, determined. Now, before him, she was a different woman. But still, it was her. Finally, Valerie got out of the car and approached, perplexed. "Do you know the cleaning lady?" she asked with that sarcastic tone that Daniel knew so well, but he didn't answer. He could only look at the children, those faces, that boy. He had exactly the same dimple on his left cheek that he had when he was little. Then Isabella spoke, in a firm, almost challenging voice. "They are your children, all four." Daniel stepped back as if he had been punched. The lights of Beverly Hills, the murmur of the restaurant, the distant sound of cars. Everything turned into a buzzing noise. It was as if the ground had cracked beneath his feet. "Children?" he repeated, as if he couldn't believe his own words. "My children." Isabella simply nodded without lowering her eyes. She wasn't there to ask for anything, neither money nor explanations. She was simply telling the truth. Valerie clutched her phone, murmuring something about reservations and the press, but Daniel couldn't hear anything anymore. He could only see the green eyes of those children. His eyes. For the first time in a long time, the businessman felt he had lost control, and with it, everything he thought was right. Sensing the strange atmosphere, the children instinctively moved closer to Isabella. The boy, the eldest it seemed, stepped forward, positioning himself between his sisters and the stranger who was staring at them. "Mom, who is this man?" he asked without fear, but with an alert tone. Isabella took a deep breath, but before she could answer, it was the girl with the notebook who spoke, pointing at Daniel. "He looks like us. He has our eyes." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Valerie could no longer hide her discomfort. "Daniel, we have a reservation. The chef is waiting." But he remained there, motionless. Everything around him seemed to lose meaning. That night, which should have been a celebration of the present, turned into a reunion with a past he never imagined still existed. And now it was emblazoned in the eyes of 4 children. Isabella knelt beside the children and touched the eldest child's shoulder. "Miguel, this man is your father." The boy's eyes widened, but he did not step back. It was only then that Daniel noticed something that broke his heart. The boy positioned himself like a small protector of his sisters, even at such a young age. It was clear he had learned to fill the space that he, as a father, should have occupied from the start. The 3 girls exchanged glances. The youngest, with curly hair and wearing a faded dress, moved closer to Isabella and whispered something in her ear, then watched Daniel with the curious look of someone who doesn't fully understand what is happening, but senses that it is something important. "They're 5 years old, Daniel. 4 children. And you didn't know because you never wanted to know," said Isabella without anger, only with contained pain. He felt the accusation like a blade. He looked at Valerie, who was now frantically typing on her phone, probably sending messages to friends or posting something on her story. 5 years, he repeated, as if to confirm for himself. Isabella nodded. "I tried to warn you. I wrote to you. I even went to your company. But you were always busy, always surrounded by barriers." Daniel ran his hand over his forehead, trying to understand how all this could have happened without him knowing. Was it really possible that such an important part of his life had completely passed outside of his field of vision? Or was it that deep down he simply did not want to see? "Did you know?" he asked softly. "Did you know they were mine?" Isabella gave a sad half-smile. "Since the first ultrasound." The bus that carried the restaurant employees was approaching, its illuminated sign and blinking interior lights in view. Isabella grabbed a worn-out backpack, slung it over her shoulders, and called the children. "Let's go." But Daniel, still trying to process everything, took a small wallet from his pocket and extended a card. "Please, call me. Give me a chance to understand all this, to get to know them." Isabella looked at the card with suspicion, then took it and tucked it into her pant pocket. "I promise nothing." She helped the children board the bus. which slowly departed along the lit avenue, taking with it an entire family that Daniel had not even known existed until 20 minutes ago. He stood there, motionless, watching the small hands waving from the window, not for him, but for the city. Valerie tugged his arm in irritation. "Are you really going to let this scene ruin our night?" He looked at her as if he were seeing someone else. "Valerie, I'm sorry. I can't have dinner right now. Not after this." She widened her eyes. "Are you serious? That woman, those children?" Daniel interrupted her almost without thinking. "Our children." The words escaped before he could control them, and for the first time he was sure it was true. Valerie huffed, muttered a curse under her breath, and walked away, nervously typing something on her phone. Daniel remained there, on the sidewalk, the city sounds around him mixing with the internal chaos that was beginning to take shape. That night, he didn't go back for dinner. He went home, but something had changed, and deep down, he knew he would never be the same again. That night, Daniel drove for hours, without a clear destination. He passed through neighborhoods he barely remembered existed, streets where the city seemed different, less perfect, less brilliant, but more real. His head was spinning. He wanted to understand how he hadn't noticed sooner, how he had missed the signs. Had pride and an obsession with success blinded him to the possibility of being a father? In the back seat, the gift he had bought for Valerie, a box containing a promise ring, remained closed. Suddenly, that ring had lost its meaning. In the rearview mirror, he saw his own reflection, but it was as if he were looking at another man, a man who had built an empire and, at the same time, lost what mattered most. At dawn, Daniel was already at the office, at the top of one of Los Angeles's tallest buildings. The city was slowly waking up down below, unaware of the silent revolution taking place within him. Scattered across the table were papers, reports, contracts, and an old photograph. It was from his wedding day with Isabella, printed on matte paper and already a bit yellowed. They were smiling, young, full of dreams. The contrast with the woman he had seen the previous night was painful, exhausted, overburdened, yet steadfast, resilient. Daniel held the photo with both hands, trying to find a clue in it to how everything had been lost. And it was at that moment that the doorbell of the intercom rang. "Mr. Herrera, your mother is here." The entrance of Margaret Herrera, his mother, was anything but discreet, always elegant with her hair tied in a bun and expensive perfume filling the room. She entered the office with firm steps and an indignant expression. "What is this story I'm seeing on all the websites? You were spotted with Isabella, with children on the street." Daniel took a deep breath. "They are my children, Mum. 4. And yes, they are with Isabella." The silence that followed was heavy. Margaret sat down stiffly in the leather chair and crossed her legs. "This is absurd. That woman disappeared. If she were pregnant, she would have told you." Daniel glared at her. "She tried, several times, and she was blocked here, even by you." His mother did not answer immediately, but the expression on her face said it all. Daniel stood up and began pacing the room. "Did you read the messages, see the letters, or did you have someone ignore them for me?" Margaret adjusted the bag on her lap. "Everything I did was to protect you. The image of the family, the prestige. You were growing in business. A scandal like this," he laughed bitterly. "A scandal. You stole 5 years of my life with my children. 5 years." His mother maintained a calm tone, but the tension was evident. "Daniel, you needed to focus. Isabella was a distraction." "She was my wife," he shouted, "and now, because of your fault and my blindness, I lost all of it. But I won't lose what remains." He grabbed the phone and right then called his lawyer. I want everything you can find out about Isabella's attempts to contact me, and I want it today. The phone had barely been hung up when the office door opened again. It was Valerie. She looked impeccable as always, but with eyes full of anger and frustration. You just disappeared yesterday. You showed up on gossip sites with that woman with children. Can you explain what's going on? Daniel was silent for a second, then responded firmly. They are my children, Valerie. All 4. She widened her eyes as if she had heard a blasphemy. You must be joking. 4? With your ex? Daniel didn't look away. Yes. And now I'm going to get to know them, to be a part of their lives. Valerie shook her head, nervously laughing. And what happens to us, with our plan? The ring. You were going to propose to me yesterday, Daniel sighed. The ring is in the drawer, but now that doesn't matter anymore. Valerie seemed incredulous. So you're going to throw everything away because of a woman you left behind years ago and children you don't even know if they're yours? The words hit the office floor like a stone. Daniel approached the desk, opened the drawer, and took out the ring. He placed it on the table between them. The point is exactly that, Valerie. I didn't leave her. I was manipulated. I was deceived. I distanced myself out of pride, out of a lack of listening. And these children, they're mine. I saw it. I don't need a DNA test to know. They're my children. And now I'm not going to repeat the same mistakes. Valerie grabbed her purse, her eyes brimming not with sadness but with anger. You're going to regret this, Daniel. The world doesn't forgive weaknesses. He smiled with a calmness she had never seen in him. Being a father isn't weakness. It's what's going to save me. Hours later, with the documents in hand and the certainty that his mother had had every attempt by Isabella to contact him intercepted, Daniel got in his car and headed to the neighborhood indicated by his investigator. It wasn't Beverly Hills nor Westwood. It was East L.A., a simple neighborhood with modest houses, cracked sidewalks, and wooden fences where children played with deflated balls. It was a world far removed from his own, but suddenly it felt more real. He stopped in front of a public school. He waited for the light to change, and soon the children began pouring out in groups, running, laughing, with colorful backpacks. And then he saw them. Miguel was in front, holding 2 backpacks. Lucia was beside him, singing softly. Carmen was reading something as she walked. Sophia was drawing while standing in the middle of the sidewalk. Daniel got out of the car with an accelerated heartbeat. It was as if he had traveled back in time and, at the same time, jumped years ahead in minutes. Miguel was the first to notice him. He immediately stopped and pulled his sisters back. "It's the man from the restaurant," he whispered. Carmen adjusted her glasses, watching cautiously. Daniel approached slowly. "Hi. I just wanted to see you again. Nothing more." The 4 stood still, analyzing him. Then, behind him, Isabella appeared. She was in uniform, probably coming off yet another work shift. "What are you doing here, Daniel?" Her voice wasn't aggressive, but firm. "I needed to see you, to really get to know you." She sighed. "That's not how it works. You can't just show up. They have a life, a routine, and you're not part of it." "Not yet," he replied. "But I want to be, if you let me." Isabella was silent for a few seconds. The fatigue on her face, the tension in her shoulders, was visible. But there was also something in her eyes that Daniel couldn't ignore. She still cared, even hurt, even wary. "They don't really know who you are, Daniel. They know they have a father, but they've never been exposed to that idea. I've protected them as best I could." He nodded. "I understand. I'm not here to intrude. Just give me a chance, a visit, a moment with them. I'll wait as long as it takes." Her eyes dropped for a moment. Then she pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her purse, scribbled an address and a time. Saturday at 10 a.m. But come alone. No gifts, no luxury car, nothing that tries to impress. Just come as the man I once knew. Daniel clutched that piece of paper as if it were a winning lottery ticket, and in a way, it was. On Saturday, he appeared exactly as she had requested. Simple clothes, an ordinary car, his hair less styled than usual. He climbed the 4 flights of stairs in an old building in downtown East LA and reached apartment 4B. He took a deep breath. On the other side were his 4 children, and, perhaps, a new chance to do everything differently. Isabella opened the door with a shy smile. She looked different without her uniform, lighter. "They're in the living room." The apartment was small but full of life. Drawings on the walls, scattered books, neatly arranged toys, the aroma of simple but good food. The children were there, each in their own corner, but attentive to his presence. Miguel watched him cautiously, sitting next to a pile of blocks. Carmen was reading a children's math book. Lucia was playing a small keyboard with headphones far too big for her, and Sophia, of course, was drawing. When Isabella spoke, all 4 turned around. "Children, this is Daniel, your father." Silence. Daniel knelt down, eye level with them. "I know it's strange, and that you have every right to be confused, but I'm here to get to know you, and if you allow me, to stay." Sophia was the first to approach. She extended her drawing notebook. "I made several drawings of you, but I never knew if I was drawing it right." Daniel took the notebook and smiled. "It's perfect." The connection was beginning, fragile, but real. The following hours passed like a dream. Carmen showed the books she loved to read, and Daniel pretended to understand everything, just to see the pride on her face. Lucia played 2 songs she had learned by ear. "I like the sound," she said with a timid smile. Sophia, excited, began a new portrait right there, this time with her real father as the model. And Miguel, he continued observing everything from a distance, with that protective air. Until, unexpectedly, he asked, "You have a company, right? How many people work there?" Daniel laughed, surprised. "Many." "Why do you ask?" Miguel shrugged. "Maybe I'd like to work with you one day, but first I need to know how it works." It was then that Daniel realized this was where he needed to be, and he would do whatever it took to make up for lost time. At the end of that Saturday, when Isabella said it was time to prepare lunch, it was Sophia who asked if her father could stay. She spoke softly, as if afraid to hear a no. Daniel looked at Isabella, who hesitated for an instant, then nodded. "Yes, you may." He helped set the table, cut vegetables with a knife that no longer cut as well, and laughed to himself, realizing how much something so simple made him feel alive. Eating with them, listening to their school stories, watching Lucia tap the table while softly singing, listening to Carmen explain how Saturn has rings, and Miguel talk as if he were the CEO of a startup. It was all new, yet at the same time. It felt like a place he should never have left. For the first time, Daniel wasn't thinking about deadlines, graphs, or stocks. He only thought of them. In the days that followed, Daniel began visiting them frequently, always respecting Isabella's limits, but slowly trying to earn the children's trust. He didn't bring expensive gifts, only his presence. He helped with homework, picked them up from school when he could, and even learned the route to the local corner store. And something curious happened. The neighbors, once suspicious of that sharply dressed man who had appeared out of nowhere, began greeting him with nods and smiles. The man in a suit now helped carry grocery bags, picked up bread at the corner bakery, and even stood in line at the health center like anyone else. It was during this period that Daniel discovered something that left him reeling once again. Isabella worked 3 jobs, and yet she still studied at night. I do what I can for them. And it was true. One afternoon, after dropping the children off at school, Isabella fainted at work. A collapse, exhaustion, according to the doctor, accumulated stress, irregular meals, sleepless nights. Daniel received the call while finalizing a presentation for investors. He dropped everything, rushed to the hospital. Seeing her lying there connected to various machines, he felt an enormous weight in his chest. She needs complete rest for at least 2 months, the doctor said. No work, no physical exertion, or next time she might not make it. That was the last straw. Daniel knew what he had to do. When she woke up, he held her hand. Leave it to me. I'll take care of everything. The boys, the house, you. She tried to refuse, saying she didn't want charity, but he was clear. It's not charity, Issa. It's responsibility. It's love. It's the least I can and must do. From that day on, the routine changed completely. Daniel transformed his home in Coyoacan into a haven for the children. He had a room set up just for the girls, with a reading nook and a space for Lucia's piano. He created a small office to share with Miguel, where they began sketching business ideas using crayons and stickers. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube videos and became a specialist in preparing school snacks. Mornings were chaotic but joyful. Afternoons were divided between homework, medical appointments, and keyboard rehearsals. And every night, without fail, he would call Isabella in the hospital and let the children talk to her. Even tired, even overwhelmed, Daniel felt more complete than ever. For the first time, he was living something real, and there was nothing he would trade that for. While Daniel juggled his family routine and managing the company, a new storm was brewing. Ricardo, his main business partner, had made risky decisions without consulting the board. Dubious investments, unauthorized capital movements. By the time Daniel received the first alerts, it was too late. Part of the company's financial reserves was compromised. Investors were nervous, and rumors were already circulating in the market. And all this came to light while he was helping Carmen with a school project about the solar system. The phone kept ringing, but he left it silent. Not at that moment. When she finished the model, he applauded as if it were the most important thing in the world. And in that instant, it truly was. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Daniel spent hours in front of his computer, analyzing numbers, reports, and possibilities. The situation was serious. If he didn't find a quick solution, he would have to make cuts. Lay off dozens of employees, people who had trusted him, people who depended on that job to feed their families. Sitting at the kitchen table, with the silence of the house around him, he realized something simple yet profound. He couldn't save everything, but he could choose what he wasn't willing to lose. And for the first time, the choice was clear. He would sell his personal assets, the apartment in Beverly Hills, the luxury cars, the shares in clubs and resorts. That no longer defined who he was, and more importantly, it didn't define who he wanted to be. The next day, he called a meeting with his partners. Some tried to dissuade him. "You're going to ruin your image," they said. "It will seem like you're in decline." Daniel replied with the calm of someone who had already faced worse. "My image is not more important than the families that depend on this company. Sell whatever needs to be sold. We will honor every salary." That decision, which seemed scandalous in the corporate world, spread quickly. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the effect was different. The image of the cold, distant businessman was replaced by that of the man who left luxury behind to protect what truly mattered. Photos of him with his children at the market, at school, in the park, went viral. For the first time, the public saw the human being behind the executive. At home, the children noticed the difference. "Why don't we go to that tall building anymore?" asked Lucia. "Because our new home has a garden," Daniel replied with a smile. And it was true. They bought a simple but cozy house close to the school. Sophia got a little art corner, Carmen a telescope, Lucia a digital piano, and Miguel got a desk next to his father's, with real paperwork, colorful folders, and even a calculator. The evenings turned into sessions of drawing, math, music, and conversation. Marisol, still recovering, followed everything via video. "You're doing better than I expected," she said one evening. Daniel replied sincerely, "It's because I have the best teachers in the world." It wasn't long before Margaret, Daniel's mother, reappeared, and as always, with a plan. She entered the office as if she still controlled everything. "Let's use this narrative to our advantage. Absent father who reunites with his children, a businessman who sacrifices everything for his family. The public loves a story like that." Daniel looked at her without leaving his seat. "No, we're not going to use my children as an image tool. Neither you nor anyone," she huffed. "So you're going to keep living like a ordinary citizen, in Coyoacán, in a small house, without private security, raising 4 children and driving to meetings all sweaty after dropping them off at school." Daniel smiled. "Yes, and it's the best role I've ever had. In my life." For the first time, Margaret had no immediate answer. Perhaps she was beginning to see that he was no longer the man she had molded. But not everything would be simple. Days later, Daniel received a legal notice. His own mother was filing a lawsuit to contest his capacity to manage the company. "Emotional decisions," the document stated, "unstable behavior." It was the same woman who had taught him to be ruthless, now trying to take everything from him, claiming he was no longer the same. And he wasn't, at least not in the way she thought. While the lawsuit was underway, Daniel remained steadfast in his routine with the children. Miguel began accompanying him to some meetings. Sophia designed a new logo for the company, which Daniel used in a presentation. Carmen, with her endless curiosity, helped put together graphs with the company's data. And Lucia, she played the piano during breaks, as if music could calm everyone around. One day, during a simple dinner at home, Miguel asked for a word. "Dad, we had a meeting." Daniel laughed. "You all. Me, my sisters. We want to help you with the company. But like, for real." Carmen explained she could review the numbers. Sophia offered to create visual materials. Lucia would compose a theme song. Daniel almost cried. "But what about school?" he asked. "After homework," Miguel replied seriously, "and on weekends." It was clear it wasn't just a joke. They wanted to be part of it. They were a part. In that moment, Daniel realized that despite the lost time, he could still build something. Not just a company, but a new foundation for everything, with love, with effort, with presence. And so it was that on the day of the hearing to decide whether he would continue leading the company, Daniel entered the courtroom holding his children's hands. Marisol was by his side, and even Margaret, seated with her lawyers, hesitated upon seeing the grandchildren enter with determination, each carrying something symbolic. Miguel, a report made with his father's help. Carmen, colorful graphs. Sophia, a board with the company's new visual identity. Lucia, with a small portable keyboard. One by one, neighbors, employees, and even school teachers were called as witnesses. They spoke of how Daniel was present, how he listened, participated, and changed. He wasn't an unstable man, he was a man in reconstruction. And for the first time, the court saw something that is rarely measured in numbers: character. The decision came out hours later. Daniel would maintain control of the company. The judge was straightforward. What is at stake here is not the lifestyle change of a man, but his ability to lead with consciousness and humanity. And, in this case, it is clear that his transformation is what saved this company. Margaret said nothing as she left the courtroom. For the first time, she seemed smaller than the imposing presence she once had. However, days later, she appeared at the door of the house in Coyoacán. She was met by Miguel, who received her with crossed arms. "If you want to see us, you have to come with respect." Margaret took a deep breath. "Can I call you Abuela?" The boy hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Maybe. One day." And the door opened, as if giving a chance for a new beginning. The house was full of life. Drawings on the walls, the smell of cake baking, toys scattered around the living room. Isabella, now recovered, was laughing with Sophia in the kitchen. Carmen was teaching Lucia how to do math with beans. Miguel sat next to Daniel, reviewing a proper presentation. It was a true family gathering. And there, sitting on the sofa with a laptop on his lap and a child in every corner of the house, Daniel understood what he had never comprehended before. Success does not reside at the top of a building, but within the walls where love is built every day. He was no longer the man who lived by the clock, the stock market, or gala dinners. Now he was a father, a partner, present, and none of that could be measured in spreadsheets. Months later, Daniel was invited to give a lecture on transformative leadership. He took the stage in a simple suit and with a sincere smile. "For a long time," he began, "I believed that being a leader meant making the coldest decisions based on the best numbers. Today, I understand that being a leader means knowing the names of your employees' children. It means recognizing that making mistakes is part of the journey, that starting over is for the brave, and that nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important than sitting on the floor with your children and listening to their day at school." The audience gave a standing ovation, and among the guests, there they were, Miguel, Carmen, Sophia, Lucia, and Isabella, with teary eyes and a smile of silent pride. This is the story of a man who lost 5 years, but gained a lifetime, of someone who traded stocks for hugs, goals for memories, meetings for family meals. It wasn't easy, it wasn't quick, but it was real. And perhaps in the end, that's what matters most, because sometimes all we need is one chance, just one, to do what's right. Daniel had that chance, and he grabbed it with both hands. Today, he isn't just the CEO of a respected company. He is the father of 4 incredible children, the partner of a woman who never stopped fighting, and the owner of an empire that isn't measured in numbers, but in love. Quote of the day: "Sometimes life takes away everything we think is important, only to show us what really matters." If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, activate notifications, and comment below on which city you're watching from. Your participation is very important to us, to keep sharing stories of overcoming adversity like this. Thank you for being here.